In the heart of New York City, where skyscrapers kissed the clouds and dreams often clashed with reality, there lived a woman who carried herself with quiet strength. Her name was Evelyn Carter, and she wasn't someone you'd notice right away, in a crowd. She didn't wear flashy clothes or carry designer bags. Instead, her presence was marked by an unassuming grace that spoke louder than any label ever could. Evelyn had spent most of her life working hard behind the scenes. For years, she juggled being a single mother to 2 kids while climbing the ranks at small companies. She never complained about the long hours or the low pay because she believed in doing her best no matter what. To her, every job was important, not just for the paycheck but also for the lessons it taught her along the way. On this particular morning, Evelyn woke up earlier than usual. Today was special. After months of searching and preparing, she finally landed an interview at Sterling Innovations, one of the biggest tech firms in the city. This wasn't just another step forward. It felt like a chance to change everything for her family. If she got this role, it would mean stability, opportunities, and maybe even a little breathing room after years of struggle. She stood in front of her mirror, adjusting her navy blue suit jacket and smoothing out invisible wrinkles on her skirt. It wasn't the fanciest outfit, but it fit perfectly and made her feel confident. As she pinned her hair back neatly, she took a deep breath, whispering to herself, "You've got this." The subway ride downtown was chaotic as always, people rushing past each other, phones glued to their ears, and the occasional loudspeaker announcement breaking through the noise. But Evelyn remained calm, replaying her answers to potential questions in her head. She knew she was qualified for the position, but something still gnawed at the edges of her mind. Self-doubt. When she arrived at Sterling Innovations, the building loomed above her like a giant made of glass and steel. Inside, the lobby buzzed with activity. Men and women in sharp suits walked briskly, their heels clicking against the polished marble floor. Everyone seemed so sure of themselves, so polished, so untouchable. Evelyn clutched her folder tightly, suddenly feeling smaller than she had expected. As she approached the reception desk to sign in, a young man sitting nearby glanced up from his phone. He looked her up and down, taking in her simple attire and plain leather bag. With a smirk, he leaned over to his coworker and muttered loud enough for Evelyn to hear, "Another hopeful trying to climb the corporate ladder?" His words stung, cutting deeper than he probably intended. Evelyn forced a smile, pretending not to notice, but inside her confidence wavered. Was she really out of place here? Did she belong in a world like this? Still, she reminded herself why she was there. This wasn't about proving herself to some smug intern. It was about creating a better future for her children. So she straightened her shoulders, signed her name on the clipboard, and waited patiently for her turn. While sitting in the waiting area, Evelyn observed the people around her. Some were scrolling through emails on their tablets, others chatting animatedly about deals and deadlines. They all seemed so certain of their place in the world, unlike Evelyn, who often questioned hers. Yet amidst the sea of polished appearances, she couldn't shake off the feeling that there was more to her story than anyone, including herself, realized. Little did she know, this day would unfold in ways she could never have imagined. The interview ahead promised to be challenging, but it would also reveal truths far beyond anything she'd prepared for. And though the mocking comment from the intern lingered in her mind, Evelyn resolved to face whatever came next with dignity and courage. With her heart pounding but her resolve firm, Evelyn rose from her seat when her name was called. She followed the assistant down a sleek hallway lined with awards and framed photos of executives shaking hands. Each step brought her closer to destiny, but not the kind written in resumes or cover letters. This was a story waiting to unfold, one that would test her strength, challenge her beliefs, and ultimately redefine her entire existence. And so, with quiet determination, Evelyn stepped into the interview room, unaware that the events of this day would change not only her life, but the lives of everyone connected to Sterling Innovations forever. Evelyn walked into the interview room, her heart beating fast but her face calm. The room was big and cold, with a long table surrounded by chairs. On one side sat 3 people who looked like they owned the place, suits pressed perfectly, expensive. watches glinting under the light. They barely glanced up as she entered. One of them waved lazily at the empty chair across from them, signaling for her to sit. She took her seat, placing her folder neatly on the table. Her hands trembled slightly, but she kept them folded in her lap, trying to appear composed. A quick scan of their faces told her all she needed to know. They weren't impressed before she even opened her mouth. Their eyes skimmed over her resume, not reading it so much as judging it. One of them, a tall man with thin glasses perched on his nose, let out a low chuckle. He said, tapping the paper with his pen. Interesting background you've got here. Lots of experience. At smaller companies. He emphasized the word smaller like it was something shameful. His tone dripped with sarcasm, and Evelyn felt a knot tighten in her stomach. Another panelist, a woman with sharp features and an even sharper gaze, chimed in. Yes, we see you've worked mostly in operations management. That's fine, I suppose. But Sterling Innovations is different. We're a powerhouse. Do you really think someone like you can handle the kind of pressure we deal with here? The way she said someone like you made Evelyn's cheeks burn. She knew exactly what they were implying, that she didn't look the part, that her past jobs didn't measure up to their standards. It wasn't just skepticism, it was outright dismissal. Yet, despite the sting of their words, Evelyn forced herself to stay focused. She reminded herself why she was there, to show them what she was capable of, not to shrink under their scrutiny. I understand your concerns, Evelyn replied steadily, her voice soft but firm. And I appreciate the opportunity to explain how my experience aligns with the needs of this role. Operations management isn't just about overseeing tasks. It's about optimizing processes, building strong teams, and ensuring efficiency. Those principles apply whether a company has 10 employees or 10,000. Her answer caught them off guard for a moment, but only briefly. The third interviewer, a younger man who seemed eager to prove himself, leaned forward with a smirk. Optimizing processes? Sure, that sounds nice, but let's be honest. Your previous roles don't exactly scream innovation. What makes you think you can bring fresh ideas to a company like ours? Evelyn swallowed hard. She wanted to tell him that innovation wasn't always flashy or loud, that sometimes it came from solving real problems faced by everyday workers. Instead, she chose her words carefully. Innovation doesn't always come from reinventing the wheel. Sometimes it's about finding smarter ways to use what you already have. At my last job, I implemented a system that reduced operational costs by 15% within 6 months. It wasn't glamorous, but it worked. And that's what matters most, isn't it? Results. For a split second, she thought she saw a flicker of respect in his eyes. But then he laughed, shaking his head. 15%? That's cute. Here, we aim higher than that. Much higher. The comment hit like a punch to the gut. Evelyn clenched her fists under the table, willing herself not to react. She had faced condescension before, but this felt personal. These people weren't just doubting her abilities, they were mocking her very presence in the room. Still, she refused to let them see her crack. If anything, their rudeness fueled her determination to prove them wrong. The questions kept coming, each one more pointed than the last. They picked apart her resume, questioned her decisions, and dismissed her accomplishments as if they were insignificant. Every time she gave a thoughtful response, they either ignored it or twisted it into something negative. It was exhausting, like trying to climb a mountain while someone kept pushing you back down. At one point, the woman with the sharp gaze leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. You seem competent enough, she admitted grudgingly, though her tone suggested otherwise. But competence alone won't cut it here. Leadership requires vision, charisma, presence. Tell me, do you honestly believe you have what it takes to lead a team in such a high-stakes environment? Evelyn hesitated for a fraction of a second. She thought about all the times she had led teams through tough projects, motivating them when morale was low and celebrating victories no matter how small. She thought about the late nights spent brainstorming solutions, the early mornings spent mentoring junior staff. Yes, she had leadership skills. Maybe not the flashy, headline-grabbing kind these executives valued, but leadership nonetheless. I may not fit the traditional image of a leader, Evelyn said slowly, choosing her words with care, but I've learned that true leadership isn't about titles or appearances. It's about earning trust, fostering collaboration, and delivering results. I'm not here to boast. I'm here because I believe I can contribute meaningfully to this company. Her response hung in the air, met with silence. For a moment she thought maybe, just maybe, she had reached them. But then the man with the glasses snorted, breaking the tension. "Well, aren't you full of surprises?" he said mockingly. "Unfortunately, surprises aren't what we're looking for. We need someone who can hit the ground running without needing hand-holding." By now, Evelyn could feel her resolve wavering. Each insult chipped away at her confidence, making her question whether she truly belonged in this room. Was she wasting her time? Had she misjudged her own worth? But deep down, a small voice whispered that she deserved better than this. That no amount of ridicule could diminish her value. Finally, after what felt like hours, the interview ended. The panelists exchanged smirks and muttered comments among themselves as they stood to leave. None of them offered a handshake or even a polite goodbye. Evelyn gathered her things quietly, her mind racing with emotions, anger, frustration, sadness, but also a stubborn refusal to let them win. As she stepped out of the conference room, she exhaled deeply, feeling both drained and oddly relieved. Whatever happened next, she told herself, she had done her best. She hadn't crumbled under their harsh words or let their disrespect define her. That alone was a victory. Little did Evelyn know, the real test was yet to come. Unbeknownst to her, someone had been watching the entire interview unfold, not just listening to her answers but observing how she handled the relentless barrage of criticism. And that person was about to change everything. Evelyn stepped out of the conference room, her heart heavy but her head held high. She walked briskly toward the elevators, eager to leave the building and shake off the weight of the interview. The hallway seemed longer than before, each step echoing against the polished marble floor. Her mind replayed the panel's mocking comments, their dismissive glances, and the way they had treated her like she didn't belong. But amidst the frustration, a small part of her felt proud that she hadn't let them break her spirit. As she reached the elevators, she pressed the button and waited, staring absently at the glowing numbers above the doors. That's when she noticed him. A distinguished older man standing nearby, watching her with an expression that was hard to read. He was tall, with silver hair neatly combed back and dressed in a tailored suit that screamed authority. There was something about his presence that commanded respect, yet his eyes carried a warmth that softened his imposing figure. "Ms. Carter," he said, stepping forward with a gentle smile. His voice was calm but firm, like someone used to being heard without raising it. "May I have a word with you?" Evelyn froze for a moment, caught off guard. This wasn't how interviews usually ended. Normally you left, sent a thank you email, and waited anxiously for a response or rejection. But this man clearly wasn't here to offer condolences or generic feedback. Something about the way he addressed her made her pause. "Yes, of course," she replied cautiously, turning to face him fully. "Who should I be speaking with?" He extended his hand, which she shook hesitantly. "My name is Charles Sterling. 3, he said simply, letting the name hang in the air like a dropped stone. Evelyn's eyes widened slightly. Of course she had heard of him, the founder of Sterling Innovations, the man who built the company from scratch and turned it into one of the most influential tech giants in the world. She had seen his picture on the walls of the lobby earlier, though it hadn't registered at the time. Now standing face to face with him, she couldn't help but feel intimidated. "I've been observing your interview remotely," Charles continued, gesturing toward a nearby seating area. "Would you mind if we sat down for a moment? I'd like to discuss something important." Evelyn nodded numbly, still trying to process what was happening. They moved to a quiet corner of the lobby where plush chairs surrounded a low coffee table. As they sat down, Charles leaned forward, his hands clasped together as if bracing himself for what he was about to say. "First, let me apologize on behalf of my team," he began earnestly. "Their behavior during your interview was unacceptable. They disrespected not only you, but also the values this company claims to uphold. It's disappointing, frankly, and I assure you it won't go unnoticed. Evelyn blinked, unsure how to respond. She hadn't expected an apology, especially not from someone like him. Most executives would brush off such incidents as part of the hiring process, but Charles seemed genuinely troubled by what had transpired. "Thank you," she managed to say softly. "It was challenging, but I appreciate your candor." Charles nodded, studying her face intently. Then, after a brief pause, he added, "There's more I need to share with you. Much more. And it may come as a shock, so please bear with me." Evelyn's stomach tightened. What could possibly be coming next? Was this some sort of trick? A test to see how she handled unexpected news? She forced herself to remain calm, nodding again to encourage him to continue. "Ms. Carter," Charles said, his tone growing serious, "you are not just another candidate applying for a position here. You are far more connected to this company and to me than you realize." Her brow furrowed in confusion. Connected? To him? The thought seemed absurd. She racked her brain, searching for any clue that might explain his words, but nothing came to mind. "To put it plainly," Charles continued, leaning closer, "you are my granddaughter." The words hit Evelyn like a thunderclap. For a moment she thought she must have misheard him. Granddaughter? How could that even be possible? Her mother had raised her alone, working tirelessly as a secretary to provide for them. She had never mentioned anything about a wealthy family or a mysterious past. "I know this is overwhelming," Charles said quickly, seeing the shock on her face. "Let me explain. Your mother, my daughter, was estranged from me for many years. We had disagreements, misunderstandings that drove us apart. By the time I tried to reconnect, it was too late. She passed away before I could make amends." Evelyn's mind raced. Her mother had always been private about her life before becoming a parent, rarely sharing details about her childhood or family. Evelyn had assumed she grew up poor, given how frugal and hardworking she was. But now, hearing Charles speak, pieces of the puzzle started falling into place. "When I recently discovered your existence," Charles went on, "I knew I had to bring you into the fold, not only as part of our family, but also as the rightful heir to Sterling Innovations. You see, Ms. Carter, or rather Evelyn, you are entitled to lead this company. It belongs to you as much as it does to me." Evelyn stared at him, her thoughts swirling like a storm. This revelation was too much to process all at once. Part of her wanted to reject it outright. It felt surreal, almost fictional. Yet another part of her couldn't deny the truth in his words. The resemblance between them was subtle but unmistakable, and his sincerity was undeniable. "But why now?" she asked finally, her voice trembling. "Why reveal this after so many years?" Charles sighed, looking older for a moment. "Because I'm getting old, Evelyn. And because today, watching you handle those fools upstairs with such grace and dignity reminded me of everything I admire in a leader. You didn't crumble under their rudeness, instead you rose above it. That's the kind of strength this company needs. Not arrogance or elitism, but humility and resilience." He paused, giving her a moment to absorb his words. Then he added, "If you accept, I want you to take your rightful place as the CEO of Sterling Innovations. Together, we can reshape this company into something truly remarkable." Evelyn sat there in stunned silence, her emotions a whirlwind of disbelief, pride, and fear. Accepting this role meant stepping into a world she barely understood, leading people who had mocked her mere hours ago. But it also meant honoring her mother's memory and proving to herself, and to everyone else, that she was capable of greatness. After what felt like an eternity, she took a deep breath and looked Charles in the eye. "I'll do it," she said firmly. "But on one condition. I won't tolerate disrespect or prejudice within this company. If I'm going to lead, I want to build a workplace where everyone feels valued and respected." Charles smiled, a genuine look of relief crossing his face. "That's exactly the kind of leader I hoped you'd be," he said warmly. "Welcome home, Evelyn." And with those words, her life changed forever. Evelyn stood beside Charles Sterling III as they walked back toward the boardroom where she had been ridiculed just hours earlier. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on her. She was about to face the very people who had mocked her, but this time she wouldn't be the one feeling small. With each step, her confidence grew. She wasn't walking in as a hopeful candidate anymore. She was returning as their leader. The doors to the conference room swung open and Evelyn entered first, followed by Charles. The panel of executives looked up from their seats, startled by the unexpected interruption. Their expressions shifted, quickly from confusion to shock when they saw Evelyn standing tall. Her demeanor transformed. Gone was the quiet, unassuming woman they had dismissed earlier. In her place stood someone radiating authority and purpose. Charles cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice carrying the weight of command, "I'd like to introduce you to your new CEO." Gasps filled the room. Chairs scraped against the floor as some of the executives bolted upright, staring at Evelyn in disbelief. One of them, the man with thin glasses who had laughed during her interview, stammered, "Wait. What? Her?" But she was, "Yes, her," Charles interrupted sharply, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Ms. Evelyn Carter is not only highly qualified for this role, but also my granddaughter and the rightful heir to Sterling Innovations. Any questions?" The room fell silent. The same people who had belittled Evelyn's resume, questioned her capabilities, and made snide remarks about her background now scrambled to recover. The woman with sharp features, who had sneered at Evelyn's leadership potential, turned pale. The younger executive, who had mocked her 15% cost-saving achievement, looked visibly shaken. I apologize if we came across as dismissive earlier," the woman stammered, her voice trembling. "We clearly underestimated your qualifications. It won't happen again," added the man with the glasses, sweat forming on his forehead. "You have our full support moving forward." Evelyn listened to their hurried apologies without saying a word. She didn't gloat or rub their hypocrisy in their faces. Instead, she let the moment sink in, allowing them to feel the weight of their actions. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm but firm. "Thank you for the apology," she said, meeting each of their eyes. "But I want to make something clear. Titles don't define us. It's how we treat others that truly matters. Today taught me something valuable about character. It showed me who respects hard work and integrity and who doesn't." Her words hung heavy in the air, silencing any further attempts at excuses. The executives exchanged uneasy glances, realizing they were being judged not just by Evelyn, but by Charles as well. For the first time in their careers, they felt vulnerable, exposed for their arrogance and lack of empathy. After a long pause, Evelyn continued, "Moving forward, I expect every member of this team to uphold the values of respect, inclusivity, and professionalism. If you can't adapt to those standards, then perhaps Sterling Innovations isn't the right place for you." Her message was clear. Change was coming, and it started with accountability. Those who couldn't rise to the occasion would find themselves replaced by individuals who shared her vision for a better workplace. With that, Evelyn outlined her initial plans for the company. She announced sweeping reforms aimed at creating a culture of fairness and innovation. Among her priorities were mandatory sensitivity training sessions for all employees, restructuring the leadership team to include diverse voices, and implementing programs to mentor underrepresented groups. Within the organization, she emphasized that success shouldn't come at the expense of ethics, and that Sterling Innovations would lead by example. The executives nodded vigorously, eager to show their compliance. Some even jotted down notes, desperate to prove they were on board with her agenda. But Evelyn knew real change wouldn't happen overnight. It would require consistent effort, transparency, and a willingness to challenge the status quo. Once the meeting concluded, Evelyn stepped out into the hallway, taking a deep breath. The weight of her new role was beginning to settle on her shoulders, but she felt ready. Leading such a massive company was daunting, yes, but she was determined to use this opportunity to create something meaningful, not just for herself, but for everyone who worked there. Over the next few weeks, Evelyn wasted no time putting her plans into action. She held town hall meetings with employees at every level, inviting them to share their concerns and ideas openly. Many were hesitant at first, unsure whether this sudden focus on inclusivity was genuine or just a PR stunt. But as Evelyn listened intently to their feedback and implemented tangible changes based on their input, trust began to build. She also introduced initiatives to promote diversity within the company. Recruitment processes were revamped to eliminate biases, ensuring candidates were evaluated solely on merit. Mentorship programs were launched to support women and minorities seeking advancement opportunities. And perhaps most importantly, Evelyn established an anonymous hotline where employees could report instances of discrimination or harassment without fear of retaliation. Her efforts weren't universally welcomed. Some senior leaders resisted her reforms, arguing that they disrupted the traditional way of doing things. Others resented having to attend sensitivity workshops, viewing them as unnecessary. But Evelyn remained steadfast, reminding herself why these changes mattered. She knew that true progress often faced resistance, but giving up wasn't an option. As months passed, the impact of Evelyn's leadership became undeniable. Morale improved across departments, with employees reporting higher job satisfaction and a stronger sense of belonging. Projects that had stalled due to internal politics moved forward seamlessly, thanks to her streamlined approach. Even clients noticed the shift, praising Sterling Innovations for its renewed commitment to excellence and ethical practices. Meanwhile, the executives who had mocked Evelyn during her interview faced consequences for their behavior. Some resigned, in shame after failing to meet her expectations, while others were reassigned to less influential roles. Those who adapted to her progressive leadership style, however, found themselves thriving under her guidance. Through it all, Evelyn never forgot her roots. Despite her newfound power, she remained humble, always prioritizing the needs of others over personal gain. She visited local schools and community centers, sharing her story to inspire young people, especially those from marginalized backgrounds, to dream big and believe in themselves. Success isn't about where you start, she often told them. It's about perseverance, resilience, and refusing to let anyone else define your worth. If I can rise above doubt and disrespect, so can you. By the end of her first year as CEO, Evelyn had transformed Sterling Innovations into more than just a profitable business. She had built a legacy, a testament to the idea that kindness, humility, and integrity could coexist with ambition and success. And though challenges still lay ahead, she faced them with the same quiet strength that had carried her through life's toughest moments. Little did she know, her journey was far from over. The seeds she planted today would continue to grow, shaping not only the future of Sterling Innovations, but also the lives of countless individuals inspired by her courage and compassion. Years had passed since Evelyn Carter stepped into Sterling Innovations as an underestimated candidate and emerged as its fearless leader. The transformation she brought to the company was nothing short of remarkable, but it wasn't just about numbers or profits. It was about people, the lives she touched, the barriers she broke, and the culture she built from the ground up. Under Evelyn's leadership, Sterling Innovations became more than a corporate giant. It became a beacon of hope for those who had long been excluded from similar spaces. Employees no longer felt like cogs in a machine. They were valued contributors whose voices mattered. Innovation thrived because creativity was nurtured, not stifled by rigid hierarchies. Teams collaborated seamlessly, driven by mutual respect rather than competition. And at the heart of it all stood Evelyn, leading with grace and grit. But Evelyn didn't stop there. Her vision extended far beyond the walls of the company headquarters. She understood that true change couldn't be confined to one organization. It needed to ripple outward, inspiring others to follow suit. So she took her mission to the world stage, sharing her story and advocating for equality, inclusion, and ethical leadership wherever she went. One such moment came during a global business summit held in London. Leaders from industries across the globe gathered to discuss the future of work, sustainability, and innovation. Evelyn was invited to deliver the keynote speech, a role typically reserved for industry titans with decades of experience. Yet as she walked onto the stage dressed in her signature navy blue suit, The audience erupted into applause. They weren't just cheering for her achievements. They were celebrating the resilience and humanity she represented. Evelyn began her speech by acknowledging the challenges she faced early on in her journey. "When I first walked into this industry," she said, her voice steady yet warm, "I was met with skepticism and ridicule. People judged me based on where I came from, what I wore, and how I spoke. But let me tell you something. None of those things define your worth." The crowd listened intently, hanging on her every word. She continued, "What defines us is how we respond when life throws obstacles our way. Do we crumble under pressure, or do we rise above it? When someone doubts us, do we shrink back, or do we prove them wrong? Not out of spite, but out of determination to show what we're truly capable of." Her words resonated deeply, especially among the younger attendees who saw themselves in her story. Many of them had faced similar struggles, being overlooked, underestimated, or dismissed because of their background or appearance. Evelyn's message reminded them that success wasn't reserved for a select few. It was attainable for anyone willing to fight for it. She then turned her focus to leadership, emphasizing the importance of empathy and humility. "Being a leader isn't about having all the answers," she explained. "It's about listening to your team, to your customers, to the communities you serve. It's about recognizing that everyone has value regardless of their title or position. And most importantly, it's about using your power to uplift others, not to dominate them." As she spoke, Evelyn shared specific examples from her time at Sterling Innovations. She talked about the mentorship program she implemented, which helped dozens of women and minorities secure promotions they once thought were out of reach. She highlighted the anonymous hotline she created, giving employees a safe space to report issues without fear of retaliation, and she praised the countless individuals who worked tirelessly to turn her vision into reality. "These changes didn't happen overnight," she admitted. "There were setbacks, resistance, and moments when I questioned whether I was making any difference at all. But I kept going because I believed in the cause and because I knew I wasn't alone. Change doesn't come from one person. It comes from collective effort." By the end of her speech, the room was electric with energy. Attendees rose to their feet, applauding not just for Evelyn's accomplishments, but for the values she embodied. Journalists rushed to interview her afterward, eager to capture her insights and spread her message further. Social media buzzed with quotes from her speech, hashtags like "Rise Above" trending globally. Evelyn had struck a chord, one that would continue to reverberate long after the summit ended. Back at Sterling Innovations, Evelyn's influence only grew stronger. Under her guidance, the company launched groundbreaking initiatives aimed at addressing societal challenges. For instance, they partnered with local schools to provide STEM education to underserved youth, ensuring that the next generation of innovators wouldn't face the same barriers she did. They also committed a portion of their profits to supporting small businesses owned by women and minorities, helping them gain access to resources and opportunities often denied to them. Employees took pride in working for a company that stood for something greater than profit margins. Morale soared as they saw firsthand the positive impact their efforts could have on the world. Even clients noticed the shift, praising Sterling Innovations not just for its products but for its principles. Of course, Evelyn's journey wasn't without its challenges. As she pushed for progress, she encountered resistance from competitors who resented her bold moves, from critics who accused her of being too idealistic, and even from within her own ranks. Some executives grumbled about the cost of her initiatives, while others resisted adapting to her inclusive management style. But Evelyn remained steadfast, reminding herself why she started this journey in the first place. "It's easy to stay comfortable," she often told her team during meetings, "but comfort doesn't drive growth. Discomfort does. If we want to create real change, we need to embrace the discomfort and keep pushing forward." Her unwavering commitment inspired those around her to do the same. Slowly but surely, even the skeptics began to see the value in her approach. Projects that aligned with her vision not only succeeded financially, but also earned widespread acclaim for their social impact. Over time, Sterling Innovations became synonymous with innovation and integrity, a rare combination in today's cutthroat business landscape. Despite her success, Evelyn never lost sight of her roots. She continued to visit community centers, speaking to young people about the importance of perseverance and self-belief. She encouraged them to dream big, assuring them that their backgrounds didn't determine their destinies. "If I can rise above doubt and disrespect," she'd say, "so can you." Her humility endeared her to everyone she met, from entry-level employees to high-profile CEOs. People admired her not just for her achievements but for the person she was: kind, compassionate, and unapologetically authentic. As the years rolled on, Evelyn's legacy solidified. She wasn't just remembered as the woman who transformed Sterling Innovations. She was celebrated as a trailblazer who redefined what it meant to lead with purpose. Her story served as a reminder that greatness isn't measured by wealth or status, but by the lives we touch and the barriers we break. And though she eventually retired, passing the torch to a new generation of leaders, her impact endured. The seeds she planted continued to grow, shaping workplaces and communities around the world. Evelyn Carter proved that true leadership isn't about wielding power, it's about empowering others, and in doing so, she changed the game forever. Evelyn Carter's retirement didn't mark the end of her influence. It marked the beginning of a new chapter, one where her legacy would continue to inspire generations. Though she stepped away from the daily operations of Sterling Innovations, her presence was still felt in every corner of the company. The values she instilled, humility, inclusivity, and resilience, had become part of its DNA. Employees often spoke about her as if she were still there, sharing stories of how she had changed their lives and guided them through challenges. Her departure also created an opportunity for others to step into leadership roles, carrying forward the torch she had lit. One such individual was a young woman who had joined Sterling Innovations years earlier as an intern. Back then, she had been unsure of herself, intimidated by the corporate world, and convinced she didn't belong. But Evelyn had taken notice of her potential, mentoring her and encouraging her to pursue bigger responsibilities. Now, that same woman stood at the helm of the company, ready to lead with the same compassion and determination Evelyn had shown. On her last day as CEO, Evelyn gathered the entire staff in the building's grand atrium. Hundreds of employees filled the space, some standing on balconies overlooking the main floor, all eager to hear what she had to say. The room buzzed with anticipation, but when Evelyn stepped up to the microphone, the noise faded into silence. She looked out at the sea of faces, many of whom she recognized, and smiled softly. "I never imagined I'd be standing here today," she began, her voice steady yet warm. "When I first walked into this building, I wasn't sure I belonged. People doubted me, not just because of my background, but because I didn't fit the mold they expected. And honestly, there were moments when I doubted myself too." She paused, letting her words sink in. Then, with a glimmer of pride in her eyes, she continued, "But here's the thing. Doubt doesn't define us. What defines us is how we respond to it. Do we let it hold us back, or do we use it as fuel to push forward? That choice is ours, and it's a powerful one." The crowd nodded along, hanging on her every word. Many of them had faced similar struggles, and hearing Evelyn speak openly about her own doubts made her even more relatable. She wasn't speaking as a distant figurehead. She was speaking as someone who understood their fears and aspirations. "Over the years, I've learned something important," she said, her tone thoughtful. "Success isn't about climbing ladders or collecting titles. It's about lifting others as you go. If you can make someone else's journey easier, if you can help them see their own worth, then you've truly succeeded." She went on to share stories of individuals within the company whose lives had been transformed under her leadership. There was the single father who had struggled to balance work and family until Evelyn implemented flexible scheduling policies. There was the shy programmer whose innovative idea had been overlooked until Evelyn encouraged him to present it to senior management. And there was the elderly janitor who had worked at Sterling for decades, quietly keeping the building running smoothly, only to receive a standing ovation during one of Evelyn's town hall meetings, when she publicly thanked him for his dedication. "These are the moments that matter," Evelyn said, her voice thick with emotion. "Not the awards or the headlines, but the connections we make and the lives we touch. That's what I'll remember most about my time here. The people." As she wrapped up her speech, Evelyn turned her focus to the future. Change is hard, she admitted. It requires courage, patience, and a willingness to embrace discomfort. But don't ever forget, you're not alone. We're stronger together. Keep pushing boundaries, keep challenging the status quo, and above all, keep believing in yourselves. With that, she stepped down from the podium, signaling the end of her address. The room erupted into applause, louder and more heartfelt than anything she had experienced before. Employees cheered, whistled, and even shed tears as they celebrated the woman who had changed their lives forever. Some approached her afterward, thanking her personally for the opportunities she had given them. Others simply hugged her, unable to find the words to express their gratitude. In the weeks and months that followed, Evelyn remained active in her community, continuing to mentor young professionals and advocate for equality in the workplace. She wrote articles, gave interviews, and participated in panels, using her platform to amplify voices that might otherwise go unheard. Her message was always the same. Success isn't reserved for a select few. It's attainable for anyone willing to work for it. Sterling Innovations thrived under its new leadership, guided by the principles Evelyn had established. The company became a model for ethical entrepreneurship, earning recognition not just for its financial achievements but for its commitment to social responsibility. Projects aimed at addressing societal challenges flourished, partnerships with marginalized communities strengthened, and employees continued to feel valued and empowered. Meanwhile, Evelyn's story spread far beyond the confines of the business world. Schools included her biography in their curriculums, teaching students about perseverance and leadership. Community centers hosted workshops inspired by her methods, helping aspiring entrepreneurs build confidence and skills. Even Hollywood took notice, adapting her life into a biopic that brought her journey to audiences worldwide. Through it all, Evelyn remained humble. She avoided the spotlight whenever possible, preferring to let her actions speak for themselves. When asked about her legacy, she often shrugged and said, "I'm just a woman who tried to do the right thing. If my story helps someone else believe in themselves, then I've done my job." And perhaps that was the true measure of her greatness, not the accolades or the titles, but the countless lives she touched along the way. Evelyn Carter proved that leadership isn't about power or privilege. It's about service. It's about seeing the best in people, even when they can't see it in themselves. And it's about leaving the world better than you found it. Years later, when historians reflected on the evolution of modern business, Evelyn's name would inevitably come up, not because she broke records or amassed wealth, but because she redefined what it meant to lead with purpose. She showed the world that success isn't a zero-sum game, that lifting others doesn't diminish your own achievements, it enhances them. In the end, Evelyn's legacy wasn't written in boardroom minutes or annual reports. It was etched in the hearts of those she inspired, the single mothers who dared to dream bigger, the young professionals who refused to give up, and the leaders who chose kindness over cruelty. Her story reminded us all that greatness isn't born. It's built brick by brick through hard work, humility, and an unshakable belief in the power of humanity. And so, Evelyn Carter's journey came full circle. From a humble woman mocked at her interview to a trailblazing CEO who reshaped an entire industry, she proved that no obstacle is insurmountable if you have the courage to rise above it. Her life was a testament to the idea that true strength lies not in dominating others but in empowering them. And in doing so, she left behind a legacy that will endure for generations to come.